Sa ngayon talagang hindi nila matanggap yung pagkawala ng kanilang anak. Napaka-hands-on nila kay Lian. Ginagawa nila lahat, even paghatid at pagsundo every weekends, pagpapasok at saka uuwi dito sa Laguna.
Sana kinuha niya na lang yung mga gamit. Sana hinayaan niya na lang ang ate ko natutulog.
From the nation's capital, all sides, all the time, I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. The big story tonight.
Robbed and stabbed 14 times. That's what happened to a 22-year-old graduating student in Dasmariñas, Cavite, who was found dead in her dormitory earlier this week.
The primary suspect is a man caught by CCTV footage walking around the dorm's premises right before the crime. Arian Calumbiran with the big story.
A gruesome crime ended the life of 22-year-old Queenie Lian Daginsin. On Tuesday, Daginsin was found dead with multiple stab wounds in her dorm room. The dormitory's caretaker found her body after some of the victim's classmates asked them why she has not been attending her classes.
Tinawagan ko po yung mother niya at sabi ko po ay i-chat or i-text. Sagot po sa akin ni tita ay baka tulog, gisingin ko na lang. Kinatok namin ng malakas, wala pa din. Paghila namin ng bintana, bukas siya, then nakita namin na nakahiga na at may dugo.
The victim had at least 14 stab wounds on different parts of her body. Most were on her neck. Wounds were also found on her arms, an indication that the victim fought her killer. The primary suspect in Daginsin's killing is the man wearing a cap and a face mask that was caught on CCTV heading to the third floor of the dorm. The police say the suspect possibly entered the victim's dorm through another building. When he reached the building's rooftop, the suspect jumped to the second floor of her dormitory before heading to her room on the third floor. In another footage of the third floor, the suspect was found entering Daginsin's room. Authorities are looking at robbery as the prime motive for the killing, as the victim's cell phone and other items have went missing. The victim's family is calling for justice.
Sana kinuha niya na lang yung mga gamit. Sana hinayaan niya na lang ang ate ko natutulog.
Authorities are now reviewing other CCTV footage in the area to be able to identify the suspect, but they admit this could be quite challenging.
Yung sa mga street na napupuntahan po natin, ganoon din po. Pag hindi po naka-side view, nakataligod po. At chumichamber po tayo ng pagkakataon na sa CCTV, maaari po makapagtanggal siya ng face mask o sombrero.
Daginsin was a graduating computer science student from De La Salle University, Dasmariñas. The dorm room where she was killed was located just in front of the university, which is why DLSUD's administration is now coordinating with authorities to increase security and police visibility in the area. Arian Calumbiran, We Are One News.
At least 31 people died after a fire hit a passenger ship off the coast of Basilan on Wednesday evening. The vessel caught fire around 11 p.m. as it was passing near Balok-Balok Island of Haji Mutamad town of Basilan province, 2 hours after departing from the port of Zamboanga City. The boat's manifest said it was carrying 205 passengers. Disaster responders from Isabela City, Basilan Provincial Government, the Coast Guard, the Navy, police, and residents immediately helped out to search and rescue operations. Authorities, meanwhile, are still trying to determine the cause of the blaze.
Yung ibang pasahero po kasi na-rescue po ng mga Philippine Coast Guard natin. So may mga barko galing ng Zamboanga City, Philippine Coast Guard, and mga private na bangka na biyahe din po. Nandito po sila.
The Justice Department welcomed the waiver of confidentiality reportedly submitted by former Governor Pride Henry Teves as they called on Congressman Arnie Teves to do the same. Marlene Alcaide with the details.
It was only through a tip from a police officer of the Bayawan PNP as to how former Negros Oriental Governor Pride Henry Teves learned that his gun licenses had been revoked. According to Teves, the PNP Criminal Investigation and Detection Group did not directly inform him about this. That's why he immediately called the head of the Bayawan PNP to have his firearms surrendered.
Sa bansa natin, license to own is a privilege and not a right. So the government has, every chance to do that, especially if you are under investigation. So the best way to do, as always or as usual, is to abide by authorities.
The former governor was reportedly not surprised about the revocation of his gun licenses. Specialists, the investigation into the killing of Negros Oriental Governor Roel Degamo is ongoing. One of the suspected masterminds of the crime is his older brother, Congressman Arnie Teves. Aside from this, authorities are also investigating the seized explosives, firearms, and even maps and photos of the Degamo family at the HDJ Tolong compound in the town of Santa Catalina, which is owned by the younger Teves. Still, he insists that he cannot own or hide explosives because he was also a victim of a previous explosion.
I will never in my conscience be allowed to be an instrument to have some other human being experience what I have gone through, because it's really, really hard.
Teves, meanwhile, recently filed a waiver allowing the Justice Department to probe his bank accounts, phone records, and emails in an effort to clear his name of involvement in the Degamo killing. The DOJ admits that the voluntary opening of Pride Henry's bank accounts will be a big help in their investigation. However, Secretary Boying Remulla says it would be better if Congressman Arnie would also release a waiver.
Iba yung waiver niya, iba yung waiver na ibang bibigay na waiver si former congressman, si Congressman Arnie. I wish it was him giving the waiver, not Henry.
Remulla likewise clarified his statement where he allegedly tagged the older Teves as a fugitive.
Actually, hindi ko sinasabi yun. That's the question. That's the question. Is he a fugitive? Sabi ko, not yet. Not yet. Unless he surrenders. Well, he's a person wanted for questioning. He has a lot of explaining to do.
According to Pride Henry, he has already appealed to his brother to come home and face the accusations.
There are many questions that are want of him to be asked, but he is not here. So ako mismo and my brothers, and now even my parents, are of the opinion that he should come home and trust the President's assurance and the Speaker's.
For News 5, Marlene Alcaide, we are One News.
Finance Secretary Ben Jokno is warning of a fiscal collapse if government does not overhaul the military pension system.
With this, Jokno says the Marcos administration is now pushing for reforms in the system, noting that the current setup is not sustainable. The budget currently allocated in the 2023 national budget for the pension of uniformed personnel is at around 120 to 130 billion pesos. The Military and Uniformed Personnel or MUP pension system is fully funded by the national government through annual appropriation, with retirees not paying any contribution. The MUP pension system covers retired personnel from the Armed Forces of the Philippines, Bureau of Jail Management and Penology, Bureau of Fire Protection, as well as the Philippine National Police, Philippine Public Safety College, Philippine Coast Guard, and the Bureau of Corrections. Now, the average pension of retired uniformed personnel is at 40,000 pesos a month, which Secretary Jokno notes is 9 times higher than the average monthly pension of retirees under SSS at over 4,500 pesos. It is also 3 times higher than the average GSIS pension of 13,600 pesos a month. With this, Jokno says President Marcos has approved a, quote, game-changing pension reform to fix the system, which the Secretary notes poses a threat on fiscal security. Jokno calls the pension reform an elephant in the room, left untouched or ignored by Marcos's predecessors.
So there will come a time when the current budget will only be about one third or 1/4 of the money that we're paying for the pensioners. Okay, so we have to really address that issue.
Government is proposing 4 reforms. These include the mandatory contribution for active personnel and new entrants. Jokno also proposed removing the indexation of pensions to the salary of active personnel of single rank and to raise the age for receiving the pension to 57 from 56. When asked about the proposal for pension reforms, Armed Forces spokesperson Colonel Midel Aguilar said it's too early to talk about it. Meanwhile, Senator Bato de la Rosa, who previously served as chief of the PNP, said most of them in the Senate agree with the proposal. He says the measure did not materialize in the past Congress due to time constraints. Senate Minority Leader Coco Pimentel says the reforms are long overdue. He said he will await the Marcos administration's version of the proposal. Here to give us his insights on this matter, we have with us live via Zoom Professor Emmanuel Leyco, President of the Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Maynila. Good evening. Welcome to The Big Story, Professor Leyco.
Good evening, and thank you for the invitation. And I think this is a very important issue at hand right now. And
Professor,
yes.
Yeah, very important. And we just want to know first a sense of the urgency as well. Fiscal collapse. Now, former Senator Sani Trillanes yesterday, of course, shared his concern. In fact, he said he had proposals about this during the last administration pa. But Senator Trillanes was also saying, collapse, medyo OA naman yun. That was his words yesterday. How would you characterize it?
Well, it's long overdue, yes, but is it? Are we on the verge of collapse? Maybe not. But if we look at the experiences of other countries, for example, Greece in 2010, they already said that they may not be able to pay their debt because they had so much mandatory expenses that included the huge pension fund that they must pay their population. And since the population was growing older and more people are on pension, I think they said more than 50% of their households rely on pension. And therefore, since it's a mandatory expense item on the budget of the government, they already declared that they may not be able to pay their debt service. And I hope that is not the same situation that will affect the Philippines, because our debt is growing. Our mandatory pension expenses, if they continue, they will also affect the ability of the government to finance its requirements.
Can you give us a better idea on how exactly this is being funded? Is it which part of the General Appropriations Act, and how heavy is the budget placed for military pension?
Well, based on the information that's available, the military people, police and firemen, they do not contribute to the pension. So it is 100% funded by the government. And since nobody is paying pension, there is no dependence. Say, for example, the retirees depending on the current employees to pay for their pension. There is no such thing in the pension fund that we have now. So it's entirely the responsibility of the current government that they will place it in their budget for the year. So there is no contribution coming from the military, police, and firemen. They will only use the budget of the country to pay for the pension of the retirees. So that is going to be very difficult, especially when there is no segment of the population supporting the retirees. It's not like the old depending on the young and the active members of the population. That is not the case in this retirement fund.
And Professor, apart from the question of non-contribution and who should be contributing from here on, as we pointed out, this is on a totally different scale from most Filipinos and most pensioners. 3 times what GSIS pensioners are getting, 9 times what SS contributors are getting. And there's been agreement, if not consensus, for the longest time that this is unsustainable. Over many administrations, it's always been acknowledged. My question to you as an economist, and I presume you'd been tracking this ballooning problem for a long, long time. How did we get to this point?
Well, I did not think that it was a decision that was based on any economic rationale. It was based on political consideration. So each time a president increases the salary of the military, the more popular the president becomes. So it has always been a political decision. Unfortunately, for every increase, it's not just the active personnel who are also getting increases, but also the retirees, because the pension is indexed on the salary of active rank personnel. So you're not just increasing the pension or the salary of the active personnel, but also the pension of the retirees. Now, the question is not entirely financial, it's not entirely economics, because it is very easy to explain that. But I think the major problem of this administration will be the political side of this decision. How can you now tell the military, after increasing their salaries, they even doubled the salaries of the military, and therefore the pension of those retirees, how can you now say to them, you will no longer get a free pension, you have to pay for it, we will match it? So that will not become popular to the military. I don't think so. Because each time we make the people pay, people are not happy with that. And especially now, families have already put that in their plans. The military families have already included that in their plans. And therefore, it will be very, very difficult to sell this idea that first we will defer the receipt of your pension by 1 year. And then we will make you pay for the military pension. For the active personnel, you will pay for your retirement. So that is not going to be an easy sell to make to the people right now.
Taking a look at the reforms proposed, one of which is mandatory contributions, another would be taking away the option to retire 20 years after service, and the index increase according to rank. So are those enough, and how much will we get if we are able to put those reforms in place?
Well, the mandatory contribution, I think that will be very, very useful, because it's like the active military will support the retirees, which is okay. And the government will only pay its contribution to match. I'm not sure if that is the formula that they are thinking about, that they will match peso for peso or even more the contributions of the active personnel. So that will help financially. But also the investment of these pension funds will also have to be done in a very, very wise or sure, guaranteed return. You cannot gamble the pension fund of the people. So it will be very, very difficult task for the government to say that now we will reform it. If they contribute, if they collect contributions from the military, they will also have to make sure that they are properly invested and make sure that the investments, the returns, will match the responsibilities when the right time comes for them to pay pension for the military personnel. But right now, we have only heard mandatory contribution, deferring the payment by 1 year, and removing the indexation of the pension to the active ranking personnel salary. So I think they will have to do a lot more than that. But I think the major problem here is not the financial or the economics of the pension fund, but the major problem is the political selling of this idea.
Okay. Maraming salamat po, Professor Emmanuel Leyco, President ng Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Maynila.
And right after the break, health experts are warning Filipinos against the harmful effects of a high sodium diet. According to the World Health Organization, Pinoys are getting twice as much as the recommended intake of sodium per day, which can lead to several health problems, including deadly cardiovascular diseases. That and more when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching the big story here on One News.
Many Filipinos love eating salty food, but experts are warning that too much sodium could be harmful to our health. The World Health Organization says an individual's sodium intake must not exceed 2,000 milligrams per day. That's equivalent to 5 grams or 1 teaspoon of salt naman. But according to WHO data from a study conducted last year, Filipinos consume more than 4,100 milligrams of sodium per day. That is double what is being recommended. High salt intake could cause swelling of the feet and high blood pressure, which could lead to the development of heart ailments. Cardiovascular diseases like stroke are among the main causes of death among Filipinos, which is why an expert is leaving this piece of advice for Pinoys who love salty food.
Magluto sa bahay kesa bumili sa labas. Most ng salt content na sa diet ng Pilipino ay dala ng pagkain sa fast food o sa pagkain ng mga processed food, no?
Former President Rodrigo Duterte says he is ready to face the music if the International Criminal Court continues its probe into his war on drugs. Speaking at the National Convention of the Prosecutors League of the Philippines, the former president maintained that he couldn't care less, even if the ICC arrests him. He added that if need be, he is prepared to rot in prison. This comes after the ICC rejected government's appeal to suspend its investigation on Duterte's campaign against illegal drugs. The move prompted President Bongbong Marcos to end all involvement with the ICC.
We'll have more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News.
still watching the big story here on One News. Before we go, two of Hollywood's biggest stars, Jennifer Aniston and Adam Sandler, are reunited for the sequel of action comedy film Murder Mystery. But what's even more exciting is a possibility of a potential third installment being filmed in Asia, maybe even the Philippines. News 5's MJ Marfori got the chance to speak with Aniston and Sandler as they promote their upcoming film, Murder Mystery 2. The movie follows the story of a married couple who became full-time detectives. During the interview, the two discussed how they became even more close as friends because of the franchise. The stars also talked about how they've become more careful with their jokes, noting the heightened sensitivity in comedy.
I wish we weren't also sensitive at the moment.
100%. Try to do the right thing all the time. There's no way to make sure everything
There's always going to
runs
be somebody
perfectly.
who wants to have a gotcha moment. Somebody's going to get offended. Somebody's
Sure.
going to. But comedy, the whole beauty of comedy is we make fun of anything.
If the first installment of the film was shot in Italy and the second in Paris, Sandler and Aniston also hinted at the possibility of the third being filmed in Asia.
We're putting it on the
Let's
list.
go.
Hold
Why
on.
not?
Let me put that on the list.
Let's get
Napanood mo ba yan?
Hindi pa eh.
Hindi mo ba napanood yung Murder Mystery?
I did not. Did you?
Yung Friends, napanood mo?
Of course.
Oo, diba? I mean, I'm super fan of Rachel, but I can't imagine doing the same thing in this time and age. She does have a point that it's hard to make jokes now. Tell jokes.
I am a fan of both. Adam Sandler as well. He just won the Mark Twain Prize for comedy in the United States for American humor. And ang ganda panoorin yung television, including Jennifer Aniston and Drew Barrymore, by the way. They have a very, very funny script.
Pero game naman ako to have that done in the Philippines. Huwag lang nila gayahin yung plane. No? Dapat mas accurate depiction ng Pilipinas.
And that's the big story tonight. For more updates, follow News 5, the Philippine Star, and Business World Online. You may also log on to onenews.ph for more in-depth analysis. Ako po si Robbie Alampay.
The big story is also available via Signal Play app. Make your free account now at signalplay.com and stream One News anytime, anywhere. Ako po si Gretchen Ho. Stay safe, Philippines.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.